They told me to take the bus to my own graduation. On the morning I was supposed to celebrate 4 years of perfect grades, groundbreaking research, and building a $13 billion empire in secret, my family told me to take the public bus because my brother needed a Tesla. I sat in the cold, sterile kitchen of the Vance Mansion in Atherton, California, clutching my Stanford Business School graduation announcement. The house was massive, all glass and marble and carefully curated art that screamed Silicon Valley wealth, but it had never felt like home. It had always felt like a museum dedicated to my brother Brandon's accomplishments, with me as the forgotten exhibit in the back corner. My father, Richard Vance, did not even look up from his 3 monitors displaying stock tickers and financial reports. "Chloe, you will need to take the bus to your graduation this morning. Your mother and I are taking Brandon to pick up his new Tesla Model S Plaid. He just made partner at his law firm, and this is how we celebrate success in this family." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my face carefully neutral. I had learned years ago that showing hurt only invited more cruelty. "Dad, I am graduating summa cum laude today. I have been working toward this for 4 years." My mother, Eleanor, glanced up from her iPad where she was scrolling through pictures of luxury cars. She looked at me with that particular expression of mild annoyance she reserved exclusively for me, as if my existence was a persistent inconvenience. "Oh, Chloe, you know how it is. Brandon is the real pride of this family. A Tesla shows status. Your graduation is, well, nobody important is going to be there to see you anyway." Brandon strutted into the kitchen at that moment, already dressed in an expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled. He had that smug expression he had worn since we were children, the look of someone who had never been told no, never been denied anything, never had to work for approval because it was simply handed to him at birth for having the right chromosomes. He laughed when he heard what Mom had said, a cruel sound that made my stomach clench. "That is right, little sister. Just take the loser bus. It is not like you are doing anything important after graduation anyway. You will probably just go back to that silly online business thing you have been wasting your time on." The dismissal in his voice was like acid. My silly online business thing. If only he knew. If any of them knew. I set down my graduation announcement on the marble countertop with enough force that it made a sharp sound in the quiet kitchen. I did not say another word. I simply picked up my purse, turned on my heel, and walked out of that house knowing that in less than 6 hours I would destroy every assumption they had ever made about me. The morning air in Atherton was cool and carried the scent of money, that particular smell of perfectly maintained lawns and expensive landscaping. I did not call a bus. I called an Uber Black, and I directed the driver not to Stanford, but to my penthouse in the Soma district of San Francisco. They thought I was a failure. They thought I was their disappointing daughter who could not measure up to Brandon's mediocre achievements at a mid-tier law firm. They had no idea that while Brandon was networking at cocktail parties and riding his father's connections, I had been building something that would reshape entire industries. The drive across the bay gave me time to think about how I had gotten here, to this moment of reckoning. It had started 4 years ago when I had arrived at Stanford with a scholarship, a laptop, and an algorithm I had developed in high school that nobody had taken seriously, least of all my family. My parents had made it clear from the beginning that my education was a waste of their money. They paid because it looked good to have a daughter at Stanford, but they never asked about my classes, never inquired about my research, never showed the slightest interest in what I was actually doing. All their attention, all their pride, all their financial support went to Brandon. Brandon got the car. Brandon got the apartment. Brandon got the internships arranged through family connections. I got criticism about not being married yet and suggestions that I should find a nice young man from a good family to take care of me. So I had stopped trying to get their attention and started building something they could never understand. I had taken my quantum computing algorithm and turned it into a startup. Then I had secured venture capital funding by the time I was 21. Then I had launched 3 more companies in rapid succession, each one disrupting a different sector. And I had kept it all completely secret from my family. The Uber pulled up to my building in Soma, a sleek glass tower with security that would make the Pentagon jealous. I rode the private elevator to my penthouse on the top floor and stepped into my real life, the one my family knew nothing about. The view of San Francisco Bay stretched out before me through floor-to-ceiling windows. The Golden Gate Bridge glowed in the morning light. My phone was already buzzing with notifications, but I took a moment to just breathe and look at what I had built. The screens on my wall showed the real-time stock price of Vance Innovations Incorporated, the holding company for my various enterprises. The numbers were climbing steadily after the quantum computing breakthrough my team had announced last week. My personal net worth had crossed $13.8 billion at market open. My AI assistant's voice came through the speakers, calm and efficient. "Miss Vance, good morning. The board has approved the Quantum X acquisition. The emergency meeting is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. You also have messages from Tim Cook, Satya Nadella, and Jensen Huang. Forbes has confirmed the cover shoot for the 30 Under 30 issue next week." I smiled and walked to the window. In a few hours, my family would learn that their disappointing daughter was not just successful. I was a phenomenon. I opened the door to my private garage, and there they were, my real vehicles. A Bugatti Chiron Supersport in sapphire blue, so beautiful it looked like liquid metal. Next to it, a Tesla Roadster, the next generation model that was not even available to the public yet. Elon had sent it to me personally after our last board meeting about satellite partnerships. I ran my hand along the Bugatti's perfect curves. Brandon was getting a Tesla today. A nice one, to be sure, but a production model that thousands of people would drive. Mine was one of 7 in the world. My phone rang. It was my mother, her voice carrying that particular tone of false concern that really meant she could not be bothered but was going through the motions. "Chloe, honey, your father and I might be a little late to your graduation. Brandon wants some custom work done on his Tesla. You understand, don't you? Just handle things on your own like always." I actually laughed, a cold sound that surprised even me. "Of course, Mom. Do not worry about me. I will definitely get there on time in a very special vehicle." She hung up without asking what I meant, because she was not actually interested. She assumed I meant the bus, and she was content with that assumption. Let her think that for a few more hours. I went to my closet and selected my outfit carefully. A bespoke Chanel suit in white, tailored perfectly to my frame. The fabric alone cost more than Brandon's monthly rent. I would wear it under my graduation robes, and when the moment came, everyone would see it. My assistant AI chimed in again. "Miss Vance, everything is arranged. Dean Matthews has prepared his special announcement. The Wall Street Journal will publish their feature article immediately following the ceremony. Your grandmother's private jet is on schedule to arrive at San Jose by noon." Ah, yes, my grandmother. The only member of my family who had actually bothered to ask what I was doing with my life instead of telling me what I should be doing. She had been my first investor, quietly transferring $200,000 into my account 4 years ago with a note that said simply, "I believe in you. Show them what a Vance woman can really do." She had kept my secret perfectly, watching with quiet satisfaction as I built an empire while my parents obsessed over Brandon's utterly ordinary legal career. I picked up the keys to the Bugatti. It was time to show them what their disappointment of a daughter had actually accomplished while they were busy celebrating mediocrity. The drive to Stanford in the Bugatti was surreal. The car attracted stares at every stoplight, people pulling out their phones to take pictures. I had arranged for VIP parking near the graduation venue, a spot normally reserved for trustees and major donors. I qualified as both, though my family had no idea. As I pulled into the parking area, I saw them. The Vance family had arrived in Brandon's shiny new Tesla, and they were making a spectacle of it. My father was taking photos. My mother was posting on social media. Brandon was preening, acting like he had personally invented the electric car. I parked the Bugatti in the designated spot and watched them from behind tinted windows. They were so absorbed in their little celebration that they did not even glance in my direction. Why would they? They thought I had taken the bus. My phone buzzed with a text from Brandon. "Congrats on graduating, little sis. Hope you enjoyed the bus ride," followed by a laughing emoji. I looked at the message and smiled. In about an hour, that Tesla would look like a toy compared to what I was about to reveal. I typed back a simple, "See you inside." The graduation ceremony took place in Stanford Stadium, filled with thousands of graduates and their families. I sat in my assigned seat, my white Chanel suit hidden under the traditional black robes. I was calm, centered, ready. I had been preparing for this moment for 4 years. My family sat somewhere in the sea of attendees, probably bored and checking their phones, counting the minutes until they could leave and get back to celebrating Brandon. They had no idea what was about to happen. Dean Matthews took the stage after the initial welcomes and ceremonial speeches. "Before we begin conferring degrees," he said, his voice carrying across the stadium, "we have a very special honor today. We are here to recognize someone extraordinary, someone who represents the very best of what Stanford stands for: innovation, excellence, and the courage to dream impossibly big dreams." I felt my heart rate pick up slightly. This was it. In the section where my family sat, I could see them still distracted. My father was scrolling through his phone. My mother was adjusting her sunglasses. Brandon was taking selfies with his new Tesla key fob visible in the frame. Dean Matthews continued, his voice growing stronger. "This young woman, at just 24 years old, has become the youngest self-made female billionaire in tech history. She has revolutionized quantum computing, blockchain technology, and artificial intelligence. Her company, Vance Innovations Incorporated, employs over 20,000 people globally across 17 countries." I saw my father's head snap up. My mother's phone dropped into her lap. Brandon's mouth fell open. This morning, following her team's breakthrough in quantum computing, her personal net worth exceeded $13.8 billion. She has disrupted 5 major industries. She holds over 300 patents. And today, she is also becoming Stanford's largest individual donor in history, with a personal contribution of $2 billion to our engineering and research programs. The stadium had gone completely silent, 20,000 people holding their breath. Please stand and join me in honoring Chloe Vance, founder and CEO of Vance Innovations Incorporated, graduating summa cum laude from Stanford Business School. I stood up slowly, letting the moment breathe. Then I removed my graduation robe, revealing the pristine white Chanel suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. The fabric caught the light perfectly, and I knew I looked exactly like what I was: powerful, successful, and completely in control. The applause started like thunder and did not stop. I walked to the stage, my heels clicking with confidence, and accepted the microphone from Dean Matthews. I looked out at the sea of faces, at the cameras recording everything, at the journalists who had been tipped off about this moment. And then I found my family in the crowd. My father's face was white with shock. My mother looked like she might faint. Brandon was staring at me like he had never seen me before, which in a way, he had not. "Thank you, Dean Matthews," I began, my voice steady and clear. 4 years ago, I came to Stanford with a dream and an algorithm. While everyone thought I was just studying, I was building. While some people were busy buying cars, I paused deliberately, letting my eyes rest on Brandon. I was engineering the future. I advanced to the next slide on the screen behind me, showing the logo of Vance Innovations Incorporated and our stock performance. The numbers were staggering, and a murmur went through the crowd. This morning, the breakthrough achieved by my team is not just a headline. It is a fundamental shift in what is possible with computing power. We have created technology that will change medicine, climate science, cryptography, and artificial intelligence. And yes, I did all of this while maintaining a perfect GPA and graduating summa cum laude. I let that sink in, watching my brother's face turn red with humiliation. For those who think success only has one path, for those who measure worth by the car you drive or the law firm you work for, I want you to think bigger. Sometimes the greatest achievements happen in silence, while everyone is looking the other way. I pulled out my phone and displayed the real-time stock chart of Vance Innovations Incorporated on the massive screens. The numbers made Brandon's Tesla look like a child's toy. And yes, I said, looking directly at where my father sat, I still take the bus sometimes. Not because I have to, but because while other people are showing off their cars, I am busy building an empire. The applause was deafening. It went on for minutes. I saw professors on their feet, students cheering, parents crying. I saw reporters frantically typing. I saw the exact moment my mother realized she had been posting about Brandon's Tesla while her daughter was building something that would be written about in history books. After the ceremony, I stood next to my Bugatti while reporters swarmed around me. Tech CEOs I had only met in video conferences came to shake my hand in person. Venture capitalists who had rejected my early pitches tried to pretend they had always believed in me. And then my family appeared, moving toward me slowly, like they were walking through water. They looked small suddenly, diminished. Their earlier confidence completely evaporated. My mother reached me first, tears streaming down her face. "Chloe, how? When?" "I do not understand any of this." My father was struggling to form words. "But you never said anything. We had no idea." I looked at him with years of hurt and dismissal flowing through me, and I let it show. "Said anything?" Every time I tried to talk about my first company, Mom told me to focus on finding a husband. Every time I mentioned my tech projects, you suggested I get a real job like Brandon. You were not interested in what I was doing. You were too busy celebrating him. Brandon pushed forward, his face a mixture of disbelief and something that looked like betrayal. "This is impossible. You are my little sister. You are supposed to be the failure. How are you a billionaire?" I met his eyes without flinching. "I am the CEO of 5 companies, Brandon. I own the largest quantum computing platform in the world. I have partnerships with every major tech company on the planet. I did all of that while you mocked me for taking the bus." My assistant appeared at that moment, a young man in an impeccable suit carrying a tablet. "Miss Vance, Elon Musk is calling. He wants to discuss the satellite partnership parameters." I held up a finger. "Tell him I will call back in 15 minutes. I am having a family moment." My father's eyes went wide at the casual name drop. My mother looked like she might be sick. Brandon seemed to have lost the ability to speak altogether. Eleanor found her voice again, shaky and desperate. "Why did you not tell us? We are your family." I considered that question, really thought about it. "Because you never asked me what I was doing. You told me what I should be doing." When I tried to share my first business success, Mom said I should be focusing on marriage. When I won my first tech award, Dad suggested I use it to get a real job like Brandon's. You did not want to know who I was becoming. You wanted me to be who you thought I should be. Richard took a step closer, and for the first time in my life, I saw my father look uncertain. "We made a mistake. We should have paid more attention. We should have supported you." I nodded slowly. "Yes, you should have. But here is the thing, Dad. I did not build this empire to prove you wrong. I built it because I saw a future that nobody else could see. The fact that you finally recognize me now? That is just a bonus." Brandon was still staring at my car like it personally offended him. "All those times I offered you rides," he muttered. I almost laughed. "I have had a private driver for 3 years, Brandon. And this car," I gestured to the Bugatti, "and that one, I pointed to where my McLaren P1 was being delivered by my assistant, and my personal helicopter, and my jet. But watching you all think I could not afford basic transportation? That was an interesting lesson in how little you actually knew about my life. A Forbes photographer approached, asking if I was ready for some shots with the car. I nodded, then turned back to my family. I am having dinner at my penthouse tonight, 7 p.m. My driver will pick you up. Grandmother is flying in, and she will be there too. My mother's face went even paler. Your grandmother knew? Of course she knew. She was my first investor. She was the only one who asked me what I wanted to do with my life, instead of telling me what I should do. I pulled out one of my business cards, matte black with silver lettering. Just my name and my title, CEO, Vance Innovations Incorporated. I handed it to my father. Tonight, 7 p.m. Do not be late. I started to walk toward where the photographer was setting up, then turned back to Brandon one more time. Oh, and Brandon, you might want to park that Tesla in the back. Security needs the front area clear for the Forbes shoot. His face went through several shades of red before settling on a kind of purple that might have been concerning if I had any sympathy left for him. That evening, I stood in my penthouse preparing for the dinner that would change everything. My chef was preparing a meal that would have earned Michelin stars. My sommelier had selected wines that cost more than most people's monthly salaries. My assistant had arranged every detail perfectly. The doorbell rang precisely at 7 p.m. My family arrived together, driven by my chauffeur in one of my cars, looking around my penthouse like they had stumbled into an alternate universe. The art on my walls included pieces by Banksy and Basquiat. The furniture was museum quality. The view was literally priceless. My grandmother arrived 30 minutes later, swept in by her own security detail, looking absolutely delighted. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "I knew you would show them, darling. I always knew." We sat down to dinner at my table, custom made from a single piece of rare wood that I had sourced from a sustainable forest in Brazil. The uncomfortable silence was broken only by the soft sounds of expensive china and crystal. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Chloe, I do not know where to start. We have been terrible parents to you. We were so focused on Brandon, on the traditional path to success, that we completely failed to see what you were accomplishing." I took a sip of wine, a vintage that my father could not have afforded on his best day. That is accurate. My mother reached across the table like she wanted to take my hand, but was not sure if she was allowed. "Can you forgive us? Can we start over?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the dismissive woman from this morning but someone genuinely broken by what she had learned about herself. "I do not know, Mom. Forgiveness is not something you can just demand. It is something that has to be earned over time." Brandon had been silent through most of the dinner, but now he spoke up, his voice smaller than I had ever heard it. "I have been a terrible brother. I mocked you. I belittled everything you did. And the whole time, you were building something I cannot even comprehend." I set down my fork and looked at each of them. "Here is what I want you to understand. I did not do this for revenge. I did not build companies and change industries just to prove you wrong. I did it because I had a vision, because I had the capability, and because I refused to let your limitations define my possibilities." My grandmother smiled proudly. "That is my girl," I continued, my voice steady. "But I need you to understand something else. The way you treated me, the way you dismissed me and overlooked me and made me feel worthless, that was not just disappointing. It was destructive. I spent years doubting myself because the people who were supposed to believe in me could not see past their own narrow definition of success." Eleanor was crying now, quiet tears that she did not try to hide. "We were terrible. We were so wrong. Yes, you were. And I need you to own that. Not just tonight, not just because you are impressed by the money and the success. I need you to understand that you damaged me, and that rebuilding trust is going to take a long time." Richard nodded slowly. "We will do whatever it takes. We will spend the rest of our lives making this right." I looked at my grandmother, who gave me an encouraging nod. Then I looked back at my parents and brother. "I am willing to try, but on my terms, with boundaries, with respect, and with the understanding that my success is not about you, and my value was never dependent on your approval." The dinner continued, and slowly, carefully, we began to talk. Really talk, maybe for the first time in my life. My parents asked questions about my companies, actually listening to the answers. Brandon admitted that he had always been jealous of my intelligence and had masked it with cruelty. My mother acknowledged that she had tried to force me into a mold that was never going to fit. It was not a magical healing. It was not a happy ending tied up with a bow. It was messy and painful and real. But it was a beginning. Later that night, after they had all left, I stood on my balcony looking out at San Francisco. My phone buzzed with messages from reporters wanting interviews, from CEOs wanting meetings, from universities wanting me to speak. The world knew who I was now. The secret was out. My grandmother had stayed behind. She joined me on the balcony, a glass of cognac in her hand. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it, really examined my emotions. "I feel free," I said finally. For years I was carrying the weight of their disappointment, their dismissal. Even though I was succeeding beyond anyone's wildest dreams, part of me still wanted their approval. Today, I finally let that go. She nodded wisely. That is the real success, Chloe. Not the billions, not the companies, not the recognition. It is knowing your worth independent of anyone else's opinion. I smiled. You taught me that. You were the only one who saw me. She put her arm around me. I saw you because I was not looking for what I wanted you to be. I was looking at who you actually were. That is what real love does. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights sparkle. Tomorrow, my life would change again. The Forbes article would drop. The interviews would air. The world would know my story. But tonight, I was just Chloe, standing in the life I had built with my own hands, my own mind, my own determination. I thought about that morning, about being told to take the bus while my brother got celebrated for doing the bare minimum. I thought about all the years of being overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. And I thought about the look on their faces when they realized who I really was. This was not about revenge. Revenge would have meant I still cared about their opinion enough to want to hurt them. This was about revelation. This was about showing them, showing the world, that success is not one size fits all, that the people who seem ordinary might be building extraordinary things in silence. That being underestimated is sometimes the greatest gift, because it means nobody is watching closely enough to stop you. My phone buzzed again. A message from Brandon. I know I do not deserve this, but thank you for not giving up on us entirely. I am going to spend the rest of my life being a better brother. I read it and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it someday. I replied, actions, not words, show me over time. My grandmother went inside to sleep in one of my guest rooms. I stayed on the balcony a while longer, thinking about the journey. 4 years ago, I had been an 18-year-old girl with a dream and an algorithm. Today, I was a billionaire CEO who had changed multiple industries. But more importantly, I was someone who had learned that my value was not contingent on anyone else's recognition. I was someone who had built something real and meaningful and lasting. I was someone who had faced dismissal and doubt and had turned it into fuel for greatness. The view from my penthouse was incredible, yes. The money was real. The success was undeniable. But what mattered most was the view I had of myself. I was no longer the girl hoping for her family's approval. I was a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she was capable of. I raised my glass of wine to the city, to the stars, to the future I was building. Here is to the bus rides, I said quietly. Here is to being underestimated. Here is to building an empire while everyone is busy celebrating mediocrity. Here is to proving that the only opinion that truly matters is your own. The next morning, I woke early as always. My routine had not changed despite yesterday's revelations. I worked out, showered, dressed in one of my custom suits. My calendar was packed with meetings, investor calls, product launches. The world would not stop turning because my family finally saw me. The Wall Street Journal article had dropped overnight, and my phone was blowing up. The headline read, Tech's Best Kept Secret, How Chloe Vance Built a $13 billion Empire While Everyone Was Looking Away. The article was thorough, detailing my companies, my innovations, my impact. But my favorite paragraph was this. When asked why she kept her success secret from her family, Vance replied simply, they never asked. They were too busy celebrating conventional success to notice that something extraordinary was happening right under their noses. My assistant knocked on my bedroom door. Miss Vance, you have messages from the White House, the CEO of Microsoft, and your mother. I smiled. Take messages from everyone except my mother. She can call back during business hours like everyone else, because that was the thing I had learned. Boundaries were not cruel. They were necessary. And real relationships, healthy relationships, respected them. My mother did call back later, during my designated personal time. Her voice was tentative. Chloe, I read the article. I wanted to say I am proud of you. I paused before responding. Thank you. That means more than you might think. We talked for a few minutes, a real conversation where she asked questions and listened to answers. It was not perfect, but it was progress. When we hung up, I realized I was smiling. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Interviews with Bloomberg, Forbes, TechCrunch, a video call with Tim Cook discussing a potential partnership, a board meeting for one of my companies. A product demo that would change how people interact with AI. This was my life. This was what I had built, and it was only the beginning. That evening, I attended a gala for Stanford, arriving in my Bugatti, because why not? The stares and whispers followed me everywhere, but they were different now. Not dismissive, but awed. Not condescending, but respectful. Brandon was there, attending as an alumnus. He saw me across the room and made his way over slowly, like approaching a lion he was not sure was tame. Chloe, he said quietly, can we talk? I gestured to a quieter corner. We moved away from the crowd. I have been thinking a lot since yesterday, he said. about how I treated you, about what I missed while I was busy feeling superior. I was jealous of you even when I thought you were failing, because you had something I did not have. What was that? Integrity, purpose. You were doing things because they mattered to you, not because they looked good to other people. I have been living my entire life for approval, and you were out there changing the world. I studied him, looking for insincerity but finding only genuine regret. That is a hard thing to admit. I am trying to be better. I started therapy this week. I know that does not erase anything, but I wanted you to know I am serious about changing. I nodded slowly. That is good, Brandon. I hope it helps you. We talked for a few more minutes, and it was almost normal, almost like we were actually siblings instead of strangers who shared DNA. It was a start. As I drove home that night, my Bugatti purring through the streets of San Francisco, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed in just 48 hours. Not my actual life, that had been extraordinary for years, but how people saw me, how my family saw me, how I saw myself in relation to them. The girl who had been told to take the bus now owned a fleet of cars worth more than most people's houses, but more importantly, she owned her own story. She had taken every dismissal, every slight, every moment of being overlooked, and she had turned it into rocket fuel. I had proven that success is not about following someone else's path. It is about having the courage to create your own. I had shown that being underestimated is not a weakness but an advantage, because it means you can work in peace while everyone else is distracted by their own assumptions. And I had learned that the only approval that truly matters comes from within. My family's acceptance was nice, their regret was warranted, their desire to rebuild was appreciated. But none of it changed who I had already become. I was Chloe Vance, 24-year-old billionaire, CEO of 5 companies, holder of 300 patents, changer of industries. I was the girl who took the bus to her own graduation and drove a Bugatti home from it. I was living proof that sometimes the people who believe in you least are the ones who motivate you most. As I pulled into my private garage and walked to my elevator, I thought about the future. The companies I would build, the problems I would solve, the impact I would have. My family's redemption arc was their own to write. My story was just beginning, and what a story it would be.